Hello, it's Daryn Woods. So, with the premiere of The Last Jedi coming up this week, I've been thinking a lot about the Star Wars franchise as a whole and how this next step past the original story is going to play into the greater Star Wars universe. Because, I mean, I will admit it, I had eaten a full serving of member berries when I saw The Force Awakens for the first time. Like, I totally ate that shit up. It wasn't until the sparkles had faded and I had rewatched it a few times that I realized, like, oh shit, this is just a copy of the old movies, except not as good. Except, I mean, I still like them, so whatever. But here's my theory. I think that The Force Awakens was purely a business venture. Like, I get it, Disney was relaunching a huge and beloved franchise. They had to start it off with a success. So by copying the formula of the old movies, they were able to pander to the nostalgia of the older fan base, while also using the proven success of the old formula to rope in a whole new generation of Star Wars fans, which allowed them to make a movie that the established fan base would enjoy, while also recapturing the wonder that dazzled the youth of the 80s and 90s. So in that sense, I can understand why the whole movie felt like an incomplete setup, because it seems like they were like, here, we're gonna throw you a bone and lay the groundwork, and then in the next movie we'll really get going. I hope, you know, we shall see. But I understand the slow build, because moving forward into a new story, especially in a franchise this well developed, is a pretty daunting task. My brother pointed out over the weekend that it's kind of hard to tell a Star Wars story without Anakin Skywalker, because it's kind of his story, and I was like, damn. That's kind of true. His conflict with the light and dark is almost like the catalyst that ignites the civil unrest of the galaxy. Well, not catalyst, because power and politics were already at play. But his struggle symbolizes the fraction of power between the Republic and the Separatists and the Jedi Order. It's Anakin's conflict that exposes the fallacy of absolutes on both sides, and how the arrogant possession of ideals by people in power inevitably antagonizes an opposing force, and how the struggle between those two forces can destroy humanity around it. Anakin is literally the embodiment of the struggle between the light and dark, you know, the chosen one who will bring balance to the Force. But unfortunately for him, the Jedi don't actually want to bring balance to the Force, they just want to eradicate the Sith. They say so every time they talk about him. They say he's the chosen one who will destroy the Sith and bring balance to the Force. But I think the Sith are just a reflection of the extreme values of the Jedi Order, so I don't think destroying the Sith brings balance to the Force. I think it upsets it. But yeah, the Jedi don't actually want balance, because anytime Anakin exhibits any kind of deviation from the Jedi way, they're like, oh, you fucked up, you're not a real Jedi if you can't control yourself. But really, I think they were just scared, because they were like, oh shit, he's super powerful, but we didn't get him until he was 10 years old, so we can't brainwash him into following our dogmatic lifestyle like we do with all the other Force-strong children that we steal away from their families. The Jedi failed to see the error in their ways, because they felt like because they were a benevolent entity and they were doing things for the greater good, that they were righteous and justified as the ultimate authority. But obviously there's a danger in absolutes, and I think as the chosen one, Anakin would have been the first balanced Jedi, so it's truly tragic watching his slow descent into madness as he's pulled in both directions. Which is why it's so frustrating that they fucked up his whole character arc in the prequels, but thankfully, Anakin's character gets really fleshed out in The Clone Wars, the animated series, which was George Lucas's last contribution to the franchise. It's so awesome. It makes up for a lot of shit that the prequels fucked up, and if you like Star Wars and you haven't seen The Clone Wars, you are playing yourself and you need to get on that shit. Because The Clone Wars is everything the prequels should have been, and like, I know everyone likes to shit on the prequels, but to me, even though they were poorly executed, you could still see the story that George Lucas was trying to tell. And despite all his directorial faults, he still has a once-in-a-generation imagination when it comes to ingenious story conception. He just needed a little help constructing a more effective script, and he also needed a director that could pull better performances and execute cleaner sequences, which, to our delight, is exactly what we got with The Clone Wars. He was very involved with the construction of every story. He provided the larger plot points and kept the characters true to form, but ultimately it was written and directed by other people, and the result is fucking fantastic. The Clone Wars is the perfect example of how to be nostalgic and familiar while still having ingenuity. Like, it's crazy how they took this story where we know all the characters very well, and, you know, we know where they came from, we know where they're going, and they still managed to make it fresh and exciting. Like, the perfect example is Obi-Wan's love interest story arc, where you find out that as a young man, he almost left the Jedi Order when he fell in love with Satine Kryze. Because the insight into Obi-Wan's past not only expanded on his already very well-known and established character, it also added dimension to his relationships with other characters. It showed how Obi-Wan empathized with Anakin and Padme's situation because he himself was harboring his own regrets with love. And that empathy and regret could have played into him turning a blind eye to Anakin and Padme, and sadly, by letting Anakin grow more committed to both the Jedi Order and Padme, he inadvertently contributed to Anakin's downfall. Like, poor Obi-Wan, he let Anakin get away with way too much shit, but I think we often forget that Obi-Wan was kind of thrown into being Anakin's master when he was still pretty young. Like, he still hadn't even taken his Jedi trials yet when Qui-Gon Jinn died. And I think because Obi-Wan wasn't ready to be a master, instead of enforcing the boundaries between student and teacher, he developed a close friendship with Anakin that negatively affected his training. Like, Obi-Wan wasn't as hard on Anakin as he should have been because he loved him like a brother and not as a father, you know? But I just love how the Clone Wars was able to give an old character a new story that was still true to the character and the storyline, but also enhanced it. And I can't talk about the Clone Wars without mentioning my favorite Star Wars character, AHSOKA TANO, Anakin's audacious young Padawan who finds herself at odds with the Jedi Order. And I love her not only because she is an amazing female lead in a franchise that up until the Clone Wars had pretty much had no solid female characters, but she is an amazing active force in the development of Anakin's character arc. She drives him, she softens him, she challenges him, and she gives his journey more meaning. Her disagreements with the Jedi Order showed that by Revenge of the Sith, Anakin had long since realized that there were dangers in a strict dogmatic powerhouse, even a benevolent one. It's like AHSOKA Tano is what Anakin could have been if he hadn't been so arrogant and power-hungry and committed to Obi-Wan. Their relationship and their disagreements with the Jedi Order make his descent into Darth Vader make more sense, but it also makes it all the more tragic. It's just so fantastic what the Clone Wars does with the characters on the show. I could honestly go on forever, but I need to get back on track. I was talking about how it's hard to tell a Star Wars story without Anakin Skywalker. So even though there's been a bunch of renditions of Star Wars since the original trilogy, like the prequel movies, video games, comics, novels, etc., only things that are authorized by George Lucas are considered canon, and that's the original trilogy movies, the prequel movies, the Clone Wars TV series, the Rebels TV series, information from the Star Wars Insider magazine, and the novel A New Dawn, and Rogue One. But when it comes down to it, what makes the Star Wars franchise stand the test of time is that it is genuinely telling a great, authentic story. Because ultimately, Star Wars is about the conflict within the human heart and the fight for democracy. And like George R.R. Martin's favorite William Faulkner quote says, "The human heart in conflict with itself is the only thing worth writing about." And I think Anakin's conflict with himself is kind of what ties the whole franchise together. And I realize Rogue One was more of its own story, but it works because it was a standalone film. Whereas The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi are establishing a new story arc. So how do you move forward without Anakin Skywalker? How do you move into a new sphere while still hearkening back to the past? Well, first off, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I know the perfect formula for the future of Star Wars. I am merely a fan, but as a fan, here's what I think. I do think they finally have to address the central issue, which is the balance of the Force and how the power struggle within the Force affects the galaxy. I also think they have to bring back the focused narrative, because after watching The Force Awakens a few times, I was kind of like, who is this movie about? And what is it trying to accomplish? And it's really hard to find the answer because I don't think there is one. And even though a lot of people hated it in the prequels, I think it would be interesting to explore the ineffectual politics of the Galactic Republic, because it's a nice idea, you know, a unified galactic democracy, but in reality it would almost be impossible to enforce. But on the contrary, you know, what's the alternative? That all planets are autonomous and there's no consequences for violence or oppression and there's no facilitation or laws for planetary relations? That fucking sucks too. I would love to see that, but I have a feeling literally nobody else would. I would like to see the following movies focus on Luke. I think his inheritance of the struggle with balancing the Force is a great way to tie in the old franchise while setting it off in a new direction. But mostly I want The Last Jedi to get back to what makes Star Wars so great, which is strong characters, originality, and effective storytelling. Emphasis on originality. Anyways, that's it for my Star Wars thoughts today. Thank you guys so much for watching. I know there wasn't exactly a linear path through this video, but I hope you were picking up what I was putting down. If you like this video, please share it with a friend and check out my other ones. Don't forget to give me a like and a subscribe and leave a comment letting me know what you guys think. And can I just say, I'm having so much fun reading and replying to all your comments. Like, I started this YouTube channel because I don't have many friends that I can talk about this kind of shit with, so discussing it with you guys has been a blast. Like, honestly, thank you guys so much. As for the request for more videos, I'm trying my best, but I am a one-man show here. I'm still pretty new to this YouTube thing. I've only been doing it for about 3 months, and prior to that, I had no experience in filming, editing, none of that shit, so I'm learning as I go. And as a lot of you have noticed, I try to put a lot of thought and analysis into my videos, so it takes some time to put them together, but I will definitely be making a video about The Last Jedi that will probably be out sometime early next week, so stay tuned.